So we're going to walk through what it looks like to make an inkjet print using the Epson SureColor P900 printer, which is 17 inches wide. I'll walk you through all stages of printing. So we'll start by turning on the machine. The power button is located on the top, and you would just hold it in, let you hear the sound it makes as it comes on. So the machine will take a little while to get fully booted up. One thing I'll mention is you should see it's connected via USB cord to the computer at the printing station. If you ever wanted to print directly from your laptop, you could download the correct printer driver and connect it again via USB to your own monitor. So that's one option. Once the machine is fully on, you want to open up the back just by lifting up this and then close it back down, but you want to leave it open. And you'll also pull out this front kind of collection tray so prints have somewhere to land. So I'll show you how to load paper. One important thing to note is size matters. There is a printable side of your paper and a non-printable side. So you see me opening up a box. I'm paying close attention. There should be some sort of signage saying printable side up. So I'm being as gentle as I can with this paper. I'm using older stuff, so it's fully stacked in there. So I lift it up, and I'm going to take it over and gently put it in to this back side of the printer. So you have these guides that you see me moving around there. So I put the paper in the center, and then I adjust the guides so it fits properly in. So you can see these gray guides that I'm moving are the guides holding the paper firmly in place. And next I'm asked, what kind of paper did I just put in? The printer will recognize that paper has been loaded. So I have ultra premium photo luster paper, so I select that. And for paper size, it won't automatically pick that up. I have grabbed 13-inch by 19-inch paper. So you'll see it takes me a while to find the size. They label them through like A series, B series. So I haven't fully memorized this yet, but you'll see I eventually do find 13 by 19 inch paper and I select it. So once I have my paper type and size selected, I can hit OK and I'm ready to print. So I'll switch over to focusing on the actual printing from software. I'm going to be printing from Photoshop. You can also print from Lightroom. I just begin by double checking my image's image size. So it's got a resolution of 240, which works. Anywhere between 240 and 300 is pretty standard. And it's big enough that it will mostly fill my paper while still having a border. So that's great. So with that covered, I'm going to go to the file drop down and go all the way to print. And I should highlight a few things immediately when we get here. So first, you can see this is the correct printer shown. If you have multiple printers, occasionally the wrong one will show up. You should also see my image size is wrong, which I can tell by that number, but I can also tell because my image isn't displaying correctly. I'm only seeing the tiniest center of it. Also, I wanted to focus on these preview options just under my image preview where I can get a gamut warning to see if any colors are out of gamut. I can show my paper white so I can get a preview of how my colors will be rendered. These are good options to check, and we'll circle back around to that gamut warning later. Those basics addressed, though, we're going to go into this print settings part of the dialog box. So you see me click that here. And when this opens up, one of the first things I want to change is the paper size, since that's obviously wrong. So under paper size, I'm going to click this drop down. It's set to US letter currently. And I'm going to scroll up to find 13 by 19 inches, and I'll just select the top kind of most generic one. So now my paper size is right. That's great. I'm going to go to the next drop down, which currently says layout, and I'm going to go down to the very next one, which is color matching. And here you'll see I have my options completely shaded out, which makes sense. If you look in the central dialog box, I've told it that Photoshop will manage colors, so it's trying to not take over as the printing software. So now I've scrolled down to printer settings and I've gone over to basic. So again, because Photoshop is managing colors primarily, The main thing we need to do is just double check that we've recorded our paper correctly. So yeah, I've got my ultra premium photo paper luster. That's right. You could change the print quality from standard to higher quality options. For me, since I'm just doing a demo, standard is fine. Standard is normally more than fine. And I'll hit save. So now back in the kind of central print dialog box, you should see my print looks good. It's overfilling my paper. So I'm going to hit scale to fit media, this little checkbox, so I at least have a nicer border. At this point, I did decide that I wanted to go back into Photoshop and make my border more even or more uniform, so I changed my image size a little bit. So you'll see that shift. All I did was hit the done button, so all of my settings would be remembered, and I won't have to start from scratch when I'm ready to go back into the printing dialog, which you'll see I do now. So we've dealt with a lot of this basic stuff. It's always good to double check whenever you go out of the software, but everything still looks like it's in really good shape. And I hit save. So one thing that we didn't deal with is color handling. And that's really the main stress in printing, is making sure your colors and values reproduce accurately. So you'll see me click the printer profile dropdown, and what I'm looking for is an ICC profile that matches this printer, the Epson P900, and also the exact type of paper that I'm using. This is what's going to help Photoshop assess exactly kind of what to tell the printer in order to get the most accurate colors possible. So you'll see I again choose Ultra Premium, Photo Paper Luster, and now that aspect of printing has been sorted out. You do have to tell the printer the kind of paper you're using several times, which confuses some students. Next, I want to talk about rendering intent, and I'll actually back out for a minute to talk about why we're doing this. So depending on how you shoot, depending on what color mode your photos are in, you might have more colors than your printer and paper can technically reproduce accurately. So you can see that largest triangle is ProPhoto RGB, where it's kind of like, this is a simple way to describe it, but it's like if you got the Crayola box that had 128 colors, you have all these variations, whereas that really small blobby matte paper is kind of like the basic 8 crayon box. So when we look back at rendering intent, you're basically saying, I want you to process any colors out of gamut using one of a few different modes. So you can use perceptual, you can use relative color metric, you can use saturation. You can get a sense through just this preview window of how Photoshop is going to process out of gamut colors and sort of put them into the smaller color space of your printer and paper. If this is confusing, don't sweat it too much. You want to set it to either relative color metric or perceptual most of the time. So honestly, the image I picked doesn't have any out of gamut colors to speak of, so I wanted to show you what this would actually look like, and I'm just going to pick a different image that has a ton of red that is mostly out of gamut. So you'll see in these dialog boxes, this is what it looks like with relative color metric, perceptual. The gray is what's out of gamut, by the way. So you can see absolute color metric would do the worst job bringing things in. It would be a little bit more scientific than this, but it is basically Photoshop guessing the red you're looking for when you see that gray. So you want to avoid it as much as possible. It would still produce something. It wouldn't be gray, but it would be a toss-up if it was accurate. So back with my, actual demo image, I'm just going to double check my settings one last time to make sure I'm happy. And you really do want to be this careful before you hit the print button, because you're seeing there's so many different things that you could check. I could select printing marks, and I could have corner crop marks if I wanted to. I don't have a need for that here, but they can occasionally be useful. You could scale it to fit media, which in this particular case would probably mean sizing up the image, which I don't want to do. I did that effort to go back in and make my borders more uniform. I have black point compensation checked, which you generally want to get rich blacks. And with all those things double checked, I'm going to press the print button and finally make this print happen. So I'll switch back over to showing you the actual physical printer. I've actually made this video at about 2.5 times the speed, so you can see it takes a while to get all the printer data, and then you can see it's starting to print, and you can actually view it through this kind of viewing box on the top of the printer. So expect this to take a couple minutes. Obviously, don't bump the table, don't mess with the printer at all during this phase of the process. You should also see we have that tray waiting to catch the prints as they come out of the other side of our printer, so everything looks properly in order. You don't want to pull the print out. You don't want to, again, you just really want to step back and let the printer do its job here. So I'm going to slow it down right at the end so you can see what the end of printing will look like. So this is now actual speed, and you'll know very definitively when your print is done and ready for you to grab. So when your printing session is completely done, just remember to shut the printer down, make sure that both the top and side trays are closed, and then you're ready to leave. Just make sure that you handle your print with care, maybe roll it up in a tube or cover it in craft paper because they are somewhat fragile. That's all I've got. Thanks for making it to the end, everyone.